it happened fast, too fast. One minute, everything looked normal, and the next, panic. Real panic. Because according to what's spreading right now, Cardi B was suddenly rushed to the hospital after suffering another asthma attack, and this time, people are saying it was serious. Not the kind you brush off, not the kind you recover from quickly, but something that forced everyone around her to move immediately. Now here's what's making this even more intense. This isn't the first time. Fans who have been following her for years already know. Cardi has been open about her struggles with asthma. She's talked about it, joked about it, even warned people how quickly it can turn dangerous. But this time, the energy feels different. Because insiders, those same sources that always seem to know what's happening behind the scenes, are saying this episode caught people completely off guard. No warning signs, no build-up. Just a moment where everything shifted. And when something like that happens, you don't wait. You don't hesitate. You act. Now the internet is in full panic mode. Posts spreading, fans asking questions, people trying to figure out what really happened. Was she overworking? Was it triggered by something specific? Or is this part of a bigger issue nobody's talking about yet? And here's the part that's really making people nervous. There are whispers that this wasn't just a minor episode, that it may have required immediate medical attention beyond what anyone expected. Now, nothing has been officially confirmed yet. No full statement. No detailed update. Just fragments, clips, reactions. People close to the situation going unusually quiet. And in moments like this, silence doesn't calm people down. It makes everything louder. Because now fans aren't just watching, they're waiting. Waiting for updates. Waiting for confirmation. Waiting to hear that everything is okay. But until that happens, the questions keep building. And trust me, what's starting to come out about what happened in those first few minutes? That's what has people the most concerned right now. To understand why this situation instantly sent people into panic, you have to understand just how serious asthma has always been for Cardi B. Because this isn't new. This isn't something that just appeared overnight. This is something she's been dealing with for years, quietly at times, might openly at others, but always there in the background. And if you've followed her journey closely, you've seen the signs. Moments where she had to stop performances, interviews where she mentioned struggling to breathe, clips where she laughed it off, but you could tell there was something real behind it. Because asthma isn't predictable. It doesn't follow a schedule. It doesn't care how busy you are. And it definitely doesn't care if you're in the middle of a tour, a recording session, or a major public appearance. When it hits, it hits. For someone like Cardi B, that's even more dangerous because her lifestyle, it's intense. Constant travel, long nights, high energy performances, stress that most people can't even imagine. All of that, it adds up. And over time, it puts pressure on the body in ways people don't always see. Now here's where things get even more concerning. Because according to people close to the situation, this recent period has been especially hectic. Back-to-back commitments, late nights, little time to rest, and when you combine that with a condition like asthma, that's when things can get risky. Fast. Now add something else into the mix. Environment. Because triggers can come from anywhere. Dust, smoke, cold air, even stress itself. And the scary part? Sometimes you don't even realize what triggered it until it's already happening. Now imagine being in that moment. Everything feels normal. And then suddenly, you can't breathe. Your chest tightens. Your lungs feel restricted. Every breath becomes harder than the last. And for someone like Cardi B, who's always surrounded by people, cameras, and pressure, that moment becomes even more intense. Because now it's not just about breathing, it's about control and losing it. Now here's where things start getting more serious. Because insiders are saying this wasn't a slow buildup. There weren't clear warning signs, no gradual decline. This came on suddenly. which is one of the most dangerous things about asthma attacks, because when it happens like that, there's no time to prepare, no time to adjust, only time to react. And that's exactly what people around her had to do. React immediately. Now think about the people in that room. Friends, team members, staff, watching it happen in real time, trying to figure out what to do, trying to stay calm while everything feels like it's moving too fast. Because in moments like that, every second matters. And according to what's being whispered right now, those first few minutes were intense. More intense than people expected. Now here's the part that really has fans worried. Because while Cardi has dealt with asthma before, sources are hinting that this episode felt different. Stronger, faster, more difficult to control, and that's what changed the response. Because when something feels different, you don't take chances. You don't wait to see if it passes. You act. And that's exactly what they did. Now here's the turning point. The moment everything shifted from concern to urgency. Because whatever happened in those first few minutes, it was enough to make one decision clear. They couldn't handle this on their own. And the moment that decision was made, everything moved fast. Really fast. Because once it became clear how serious this was, there was only one option left. Get her to the hospital. Immediately. And what happened during that rush? That's where the story takes a turn that has people even more concerned the moment they realized it wasn't getting better. Everything went into panic mode. Because at first, the people around Cardi B thought they could manage it. Inhaler, fresh air, calm her down. The usual steps. The steps that had worked before. But this time, it didn't respond the same. And that's when the energy shifted. Fast. Because when an asthma attack doesn't ease up quickly, that's when it becomes dangerous. Now imagine the scene. Voices getting louder, people moving quickly. Someone calling for help. Someone trying to keep Cardi calm while she's struggling to breathe. Because the hardest part in moments like that is staying calm when your body feels like it's losing control. And according to what's being said, that's exactly what was happening. Her breathing wasn't stabilizing, her chest still tight. Air not coming in the way it should. And that's when the decision was made. No more waiting, no more trying to handle it on the spot. They had to move. Now here's where everything escalated. Because once they decided to take her to the hospital, it wasn't slow, it wasn't organized, it was urgent. People clearing the way, someone making calls ahead, making sure medical staff would be ready the moment she arrived. Because in situations like this, every second counts. Now here's the twist that has people really concerned. Because insiders are saying that during that rush, things got worse. Not dramatically, but enough to scare the people around her. Enough to make it clear this wasn't just another episode. Now again, nothing officially confirmed, but multiple sources are saying the same thing. She wasn't stabilizing like usual. And that line, that's what changed everything, because if her body wasn't responding the way it normally does, then this wasn't routine. This was something different. Now here's what makes it even more intense. Because during that time, there was no public update, no posts, no statements, nothing. Which meant the outside world had no idea what was happening. And when information is missing, people start guessing. And once guessing starts, the situation grows bigger, faster, more dramatic. Now here's where the story takes another turn. Because while all of this was happening behind the scenes, the first hint that something was wrong started leaking online. A post, then another, then people saying, "Wait, is Cardi okay?" And just like that, the internet started catching on. Now fans weren't just curious, they were worried. Because they know her history. They know how serious asthma can be. And they know that when it reaches a point where someone has to be rushed to the hospital, it's not something small. Now here's the part that nobody expected. Because when she finally arrived at the hospital, according to insiders, the response was immediate. No waiting, no delays, straight in. And that alone tells you how serious it was. Because hospitals don't move like that unless they have to. Now imagine that moment. Doors opening. Yeah, staff ready, equipment prepared, everything moving quickly. Because at that point, it's not about panic anymore, it's about control. Getting her breathing stabilized, making sure oxygen levels are safe, doing whatever is necessary to bring things back to normal. And here's the detail that really shifted the narrative. Because sources are saying that once she was inside, there was a moment, a brief moment, where things were still uncertain, not confirmed, not fully under control yet. And that's what scared people the most, because for those few minutes, nobody knew exactly how this was going to go. And just when it felt like everything was hanging in that uncertainty, that's when the next update started forming. The one that would either calm everyone down or make this situation even more serious. Those first few minutes inside the hospital, they were everything. Because once Cardi B was rushed in, there was no time for questions, no time for explanations, just action. Medical staff moved immediately, oxygen support, monitoring, rapid assessment, all happening at once. Because when someone comes in struggling to breathe, there's no waiting, and according to insiders, the room was tense, not chaotic, but focused. The kind of focus that only happens when everyone knows this isn't something minor. Now here's where things take a serious turn. Because for a short period of time, Cardi wasn't responding the way they expected. Not dramatically worse, but not stabilizing as quickly as they had hoped either. And that's what had people on edge. Because normally, with the right treatment, asthma attacks begin to ease, but this one, it took longer. And when something takes longer than expected in a situation like that, every second feels heavier. Now imagine being the people outside that room, her team, her close circle, waiting, watching, trying to read faces, trying to understand what's happening without being told directly. Because in moments like that, silence feels loud. Now here's the shocking reveal that really shifted everything. Because according to sources, doctors had to take extra precautionary steps. Not because things got completely out of control, but because they didn't want to take any risks. And that decision alone tells you how serious this felt in the moment. Now here's where the outside world finally caught up. Because while all of this was happening inside, the news started spreading online, fast. Cardi B rushed to hospital. Asthma attack reported. Fans concerned. And just like that, the internet went into full panic mode. Posts flooding timelines. Fans asking for updates. People tagging each other like, have you seen this? Is she okay? What's going on? And because there was still no official statement, everything felt uncertain. Now here's where things start to shift again. Because after what felt like the longest stretch of time, there was movement. Small at first, then clearer. Because insiders began saying something that instantly changed the tone. She's stabilizing. Now that word alone, stabilizing. It doesn't mean everything is perfect, but it means control is coming back. It means the situation is no longer escalating. And for fans, that was everything, because it turned panic into cautious relief. Now here's the detail that has people still thinking. Because even though she stabilized, sources are saying this episode was stronger than usual, more intense, more difficult to manage. And that's what's raising questions now. Why did it hit like that? Was it stress, environment, exhaustion, or something deeper that hasn't been fully explained yet? And just when it seemed like things were calming down, another detail started circulating, quietly but powerfully, that this might lead to changes. Changes in schedule, changes in workload, changes in how things are handled moving forward. Because moments like this, they force decisions, serious ones. And if that's true, then what happened tonight wasn't just a scare. It was a wake-up moment. And just when fans started to breathe a little easier, the conversation shifted again. Because now everyone wants to know, what happens next? The moment the word stabilizing hit the internet, everything shifted, but not completely. Because while some people finally exhaled, others, they were still worried. And within minutes, Cardi B was trending everywhere. Not for music, not for drama, but for something real. Something that made fans pause and realize, this isn't just entertainment. This is someone's health. And the reactions? They came fast. Fans flooding timelines with messages like, prayers for Cardi. Hope she's okay. Take all the time you need. Because in moments like this, the tone changes. Half the arguments stop. The jokes disappear. And people just care. Now here's where things got even more intense. Because while fans were showing support, the industry started reacting too. Artists, influencers, people who usually stay quiet during situations like this. They started posting. Not long statements, not detailed breakdowns, just short messages. Support, concern, respect. Because no matter how big the industry gets, moments like this remind everyone how fragile things can be. Now here's the part that stood out the most. Because some of the biggest reactions came from people who don't usually speak on situations like this. And their silence before made their words now feel heavier. Because when someone who rarely posts suddenly says something, you pay attention. Now here's where the conversation started shifting again. Because while support was flooding in, so were questions, not negative, not disrespectful, but real. Is she overworking? Does she need to slow down? Why did this hit so hard this time? And those questions, they weren't coming from critics. They were coming from fans. People who genuinely care. People who want to see her healthy, not just active. And that's when a new conversation started forming. Not about what happened, but about what needs to change. Because moments like this, they force people to look at things differently. The schedule, the pressure, the lifestyle, everything. Now here's where things got even more interesting. Because media outlets started picking it up. E-headlines forming fast. Cardi B hospitalized after asthma scare. Fans rally around Cardi B following health emergency. Concerns rise over artist's schedule. And once media gets involved, the story becomes bigger, more structured, more analyzed, and sometimes more intense. Now here's the detail that really caught attention. Because even though Cardi was stabilizing, there was still no full official statement, no detailed update, no clear explanation of what exactly happened. And that silence, it kept people watching. Because in situations like this, people don't just want to hear, she's okay. They want to understand what caused it, how serious it was, what happens next. And until those answers come, the conversation stays alive. Yeah, now here's where things start building towards something bigger. Because behind all the support, behind all the concern, there's one thought that keeps coming up again and again. This could have been worse. And that realization, that's what's sticking with people. Because it turns relief into reflection. And just when it felt like the situation was settling, another quiet detail started circulating. That this moment might change how Cardi moves from here on out. And if that's true, then what happened tonight wasn't just a scare, it was a turning point. And the only question now is, what does she do next? Just when everything started calming down, when fans finally felt like they could breathe again. That's when one last detail surfaced, and it changed the entire tone of the situation. Because according to new whispers coming from inside the hospital, Cardi B didn't just get treated. She was kept under observation longer than expected. Now think about that. If this was a normal, routine asthma episode, you treat it, you stabilize it, you monitor briefly, and then release. But this felt different, because sources are saying doctors didn't want to take any chances. They wanted to make sure everything was fully under control. No sudden relapse, no hidden complications, no risk of things turning again. And that decision? That's what has people talking now, because it suggests something important. This wasn't just a quick scare, it was something that made medical professionals pause. Now here's where things get even more intense. Because during that observation period, there were moments, quiet moments, where people close to her were still unsure, not panicking anymore, but not fully relaxed either. Because until she was completely cleared, there was always that small question in the back of everyone's mind. Is everything really okay? And that's the part fans don't always see. Those in-between moments, the waiting, the uncertainty. Now here's the twist that nobody expected. Because while all of this was happening, a message started circulating. Unconfirmed but spreading fast. That Cardi herself was shaken by how quickly everything escalated. Not just physically, but mentally. Because when something like that hits you out of nowhere, it forces you to think, to reflect, to ask questions you might have been avoiding before. About health, about pace, about how much you're pushing yourself. And if that's true, then this moment wasn't just physical, it was personal. Now here's where everything starts pointing towards something bigger, because insiders are saying this could lead to real changes. Not small ones, major ones. Changes to her schedule, changes to how often she performs, changes to how she manages her health moving forward. And if that happens, then what we witnessed tonight wasn't just an incident, it was a turning point. Now here's the part that still has people on edge. Because even though she stabilized, even though things didn't get worse, there's still one question nobody can fully answer yet. What triggered it? Was it exhaustion? Stress? Something in the environment? Or something deeper that hasn't been revealed yet? And until that question is answered, the story isn't fully closed, because if the cause isn't clear, then the risk still exists. And just when it felt like everything had been said, one final detail started spreading. Quiet, but powerful. That Cardi may speak soon. Not a short post, not a quick update, but something more direct. Something where she explains what really happened. In her own words. Now if that happens, everything changes again. Because hearing it from her will either calm everything down completely or reveal details nobody expected. And until that moment comes, fans are still watching, still waiting, still hoping this was just a scare, and nothing more. Because one thing is clear right now, this situation may have slowed down, but it hasn't fully ended. And what comes next could shape everything moving forward. Now I want you to really think about this. After everything that just happened, do you think Cardi B needs to slow down? Or do you believe this was just a random moment that couldn't have been avoided? And be honest, do you think her schedule and lifestyle might be pushing her too far? Or is this just something that comes with her condition? Because right now, fans aren't just reacting. They're concerned. They're asking questions. They're hoping she takes care of herself first. So go down in the comments and tell me what you think. What should she do next? Take a break? Change her routine? Or keep moving the way she always has? And if you care about updates like this, make sure you like this video. Because the next update, especially if she speaks out, could change everything again. And don't forget to subscribe. Because the moment new details drop, new updates, new statements, anything at all, you already know we're going to break it all down right here. Stay locked in, because this story might not be over yet.